So it was the perfect storm, and it was just one thing after another, after another, after another, and I just felt like every time I would climb over one hurdle, before I can take a deep breath and exhale, something else would happen. And I know you're sitting here and you're like, well, what in the world happened that was so bad? Here's kind of the Cliff Notes version of it, if you will. I had been in an abusive relationship on and off for 8 years. And while we're no longer together, I am still dealing with the repercussions of some poor business decisions that I had made during that time. And I was in a job that I absolutely hated. Something didn't feel right about the relationship that I was currently in. And I was having my own set of health issues that had completely changed my life. I was dealing with financial issues, I was dealing with the illness of my mother, and all of this amongst dealing with just regular old anxiety and depression, and overall trying to figure out who I was. Don't forget to sprinkle in just a little bit of church hurt and some issues with God, and you had me, just a royal hot mess. Believe it or not, that was just the tip of the iceberg. But no matter what was happening in the background, I was always good for a smile, a joke, a pair of fabulous shoes, and my infamous line, I'm okay, I'm always okay. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't okay. I remember that day so vividly, the day where everything came to a head, the day where I finally hit my breaking point. It was the day that I couldn't hide behind my smile anymore. My world had been crashing around me for quite some time, but at this point, there weren't any more buildings left to fall. It was just another depression, or so I thought. I'd been through this before, but for some reason, this one was different. I remember pretty vividly coming home from work that evening. I didn't bother to turn on any lights. I didn't change my clothes. I simply crawled into bed, grabbed my Hello Kitty, and literally hid under the covers. Maybe my problems couldn't find me there. And before I knew it, I found myself on my phone Googling painless ways to kill myself. I wanted options. I needed options. And so as a backup, I checked to find out how much medication I'd have to take based on what I had on hand for it to be toxic. And this was my breaking point. It had finally come. You can only be so strong for so long, and I just didn't have anything else to pull from. I was exhausted. This was the type of exhaustion that I don't even really know how to describe to you. It was the type of exhaustion where you're just mentally, physically, and spiritually just drained. You've got nothing left. The type where your cup is completely empty and you've got nothing to pour from. I felt alone, and I felt as if God had completely abandoned me. So here I had been for years, dealing with back-to-back blows, and there he sat and watched. No one would understand because there was so much about me that people just didn't know. I was broken and I was afraid, and I couldn't muster up the strength to smile anymore. The rest of that evening is a bit of a blur. I remember crying myself to sleep and praying that maybe God would take some pity on me and wouldn't allow me to wake up the next morning. And lo and behold, I woke up. Frustrated, but I woke up. I didn't understand why God couldn't answer just that one prayer. And so I somehow coaxed myself out of bed, and I called Meier for an emergency appointment with my therapist, and I had told her about the night before. And she felt that the next best move for me would be Catalyst. And I left my appointment that day thinking to myself, how in the world did I get there? Why me? How did this happen? I then started thinking of every reason why I shouldn't and couldn't do the program. The first reason being financial, and the second being my pride. So I called my mother on the way home, and I told her what happened, thinking that she would jump on the bandwagon with me and convince me that this wasn't what I needed to do. But she clearly missed that memo. She was supposed to side with me because she told me, if this is what the doctor thinks is best for you, then I think you should do the program. And I knew she was right. I wasn't going to tell her that, but I knew that she was right. And at the end of the day, this was serious. It was now life or death. So she told me to at least call and get the information, and that information could never hurt. So I obliged. And I'll admit, the entire time, I was looking for a reason not to go. I hoped that maybe someone would be rude on the phone, or maybe they wouldn't call me back, anything. But they were kind and understanding and offered to work with me on the payment. And I remember them saying, we don't want financial reasons to be the reason that you don't get the help that you need. And after I got off the phone, I was frustrated because the financial reason was supposed to be my out. But they didn't cooperate either, and they removed the barrier as well. So I somehow managed to put my pride to the side, and I agreed to go. First day of the program came, and I can recall pulling into the parking lot and just sitting there for a bit, mostly trying to talk myself out of going through those doors, and trying to convince myself that maybe the things that were going on weren't as bad as they seemed. In my mind, if I walked through those doors, I was saying and admitting that everything wasn't okay. And so I reluctantly got my stuff and I went inside. Now, something that you should know about me is I'm a pretty private person. I don't like people in my business. If I want you to know something, I'll be sure to tell you. But if I don't want you to know, you won't. And the first session of that day was a group session, and I remember making up my mind that I wasn't going to say a word to anyone. They don't know me, and they didn't need to know my business. And on top of that, I was willing to bet that there are people in that room with far worse stories than I had. So my first real group comes along, someone sharing their story, and I, as much as I try to stay fabulous in all situations, end up a blubbering hot mess. This was beyond the ugly cry. Not quite sure how to describe it. I just know it wasn't cute. And it's one thing to go through something and feel alone, but it's another thing to hear someone's story that ends up being similar to yours. Group was the first time in my entire life that I felt no judgment, that I felt like I was truly in a safe place. No one looked down upon me for the things that I had been through. No one told me the things that I had been through were my fault. And no one had made me feel less than. They sympathized and they empathized with me. And when they didn't understand, they simply asked questions, and they even sometimes challenged me. And so while all of this is going on, God and I are just not seeing eye to eye. I wasn't speaking to him, and quite frankly, he wasn't speaking to me either. I often use the analogy that I felt like he sat on the TV remote and accidentally put me on mute. I was angry with him, and not just because of the trauma that he allowed me to go through, but because he allowed part of that trauma to come from the church. And I remember saying during the program at one point, I don't know what I did wrong, but I'm starting to believe that God hates me. Now let me first acknowledge that I would not be standing in front of you today if it wasn't for the grace of God and his hand over my life. And do you not know that he will place the right people around you to help you through each and every time? So I took advantage of the pastoral counseling that was offered, and my therapist would pray with me at the end of each session. And I felt like God would find little ways throughout the program to tap me on the shoulder and say, like, hey, I was here. I've been here the whole time. So during one of my pastoral counseling sessions, I remember saying again, why me? Why can't I catch a break? I know so many people, and it seems like they never go through anything. And I'm always the one with something. And he reminded me of a scripture that tells us that God allows us to go through things so that, in turn, we can help others. So leaving the program was almost as scary as starting the program. For 6 weeks, the program is your life. And then it ends, and back to the real world you go. And at the end of the program, I felt different. I remember looking in the mirror one day and not even recognizing the person that was in front of me. I had a peace and a contentness that felt so unfamiliar. This may sound crazy, but I remember feeling physically lighter. I had been carrying so much for so long, and that it was weighing me down. My smiles were genuine, and this moment is how I knew I was heading in the right direction. I had returned back to work, and I usually talk to my dad on the phone on the way in because he works nights. And he had called me that morning to deliver some not so good news that was going to cost me some money that didn't really have. And usually I would cry, I would have a total panic attack and just not manage well. And I remember saying to him, okay, well, we'll figure something out and it'll be okay. And I think I caught him completely off guard because that wasn't the response he expected. And so he went quiet for a few seconds and then he said, you know, I'm really proud of you. And I said, you are? And he said, yeah, I'm just really proud of how you've been handling things lately. And so I'm able to handle things different now because I was given a whole toolbox of ways to handle life in general while I was in Catalyst. And while I'm talking to you, I need to make sure that I take the time to thank God, my family, my friends, my second mom who's here with me today, and everyone that has supported me through this. Thank you to the staff. I'm so grateful for all of you. Dr. Hayden and Ms. Carroll specifically, I feel like I owe you an upholstery cleaning. Thank you for letting me just completely fall apart and cry and snot all over your couches. And as the two of you well know, I don't like feelings and I don't like vulnerability, but you gave me the space to be vulnerable. Thank you to Ms. Carroll for pushing me to do the work and not letting me fall back into old habits of saying that I'm okay if I'm not. And in working with the staff while I was writing this, there was a line from an old song that we used to sing when I was a kid that came to me, and it says, "And they'll know we are Christians by our love." And there was such a warmth there from everyone. From the moment you walked in, Donna was always there to say good morning and tell you what you needed to do for the day. Just to the people that were in the group, to anybody that you would pass in the hallway. And so my life has forever been changed for the better. I walked into that program thinking that I was just completely damaged goods, and leaving remembering that I was a child of God. And my life is nowhere near perfect. But I have learned that God has a purpose for your pain. And I'm in the midst of learning what that purpose is. And one of my best friends says that what you see today is Windea 2.0. My future feels bright because I've been given the tools to succeed. And I would strongly advise you to stay tuned because I know, at least for me, the best is yet to come.